Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We're talking Traitors.
We are talking Traitors, motherfuckers. I cannot wait. I am so excited. This season is incredible.
It's already so good. And everyone's been talking about it just since they announced the cast because it's such a good cast.
Incredible cast. So many people I love are on that show, and it just keeps getting better and better. And the first 3 episodes, mind blown.
So good. So good. And like, there's more people than we even knew were going to be in it. So this is a bit of a spoiler alert, actually, opportunity, which is that we're talking about all 3 episodes. So if you've only seen one, if it turns out we don't have enough time to get through all 3, we'll carry it over to next week. But we at least will be referencing things that have happened in all 3. So you will want to have seen them.
You will indeed.
But first, check in. So tell me what is on your heart and mind today, dear Dr. Ray.
What is on my heart and mind today is a great question. I didn't think of one beforehand, but let me, I know. So my partner's parents, we've been doing a lot of work on house. It's something I really enjoy doing now. I joke that I'm going to quit psychology and become like, yes. So that's been my update. But what is on your mind, heart, all the things today? Soul.
Body.
Body, soul, all the parts.
Turducken. That is a reference because I'll even tell you why right now, because that's really what's on my heart and mind. Even though I swear I am also a separate person from this podcast, but we are working on our Patreon, which is launching tomorrow. Oh wait, today. If you're listening to this, we happen to be recording on a Sunday this week, which we don't always, but in this case, it's tomorrow that you'll be hearing this episode, and also therefore for you, it's today that the Patreon has landed. It has landed. Woo! And we are so excited. It has been a lot of work and a long time coming in some ways, just in terms of our, it's starting back with the brainstorming level. It's been a long time. And it is so fun to see it really materialize. We have an introduction video that you can just go watch, anybody, totally public. And you can see in there that I reference a turducken. That's why we are laughing about it. So you have to go find out why that's funny. Hopefully you think it's funny too. And the intro video is right there on the About page, or you can see it on the list of posts. There are really, I think, valuable and rich and juicy benefits available for each level of membership: $5, $10, and $20 a month. And you can also one-time purchase things and purchase collections of things. And then also, even a free viewer, there are things you'll find on there. So on Thursday, we're going to also drop our calendar for the next month and a half. So you can go check that out, and you'll see there's a level of purple, of the purple color for color coding of public options too. So I hope you'll check it out and think about joining us. We're giving out free memberships for every single Friday for the next 6 weeks. We are giving out a free membership to go up to the level 3 tier. And then we're also going to shout out anybody who joins our Patreon by name at the end of our next episode. It might be it might not be a length. We're trying not to keep it. We're going to try not to let it be lengthy. I'm not saying there are going to be a lot of people. There probably won't be. So it probably won't be lengthy anyway. But if it was, we would, try to contain it a little bit. So it might be that even if you joined a certain week, it might be the next week that you hear, or the week after. We'll just see. I don't know. I'm hopeful, but who knows? You got to just swing for the moon. And if you don't land there, you land in the stars. So we're trying to manifest.
Exactly. We are indeed. And we're very excited and are extending our gratitude for all who decide to join our Patreon. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Advance gratitude. There's so much content. Every week there's going to be new content and such. And I really highly recommend. There's also going to be trailers that I drop on the social media page and in collaboration with Dr. Ray Pods in terms of Instagram. So you will see you can see sort of about the things that you'd be able to get if you were in the Patreon membership. So yay, that's exciting. I think there was one other thing. Honestly, I wrote myself a little note so I didn't forget. And I think there's one other thing I wanted to mention. Oh, there are already going to be some things up that are the bigger items, not just trailers. So there's going to be something that I'm calling mental health info vids, which are videos that I've created around specific concepts from different types of reality television. So there's little samples of scenes from the reality television that then I pair with relational messages or recommendations or mental health kind of content. There's gonna be one already up on the Patreon if you're a tier 3 member, and then we'll have more dropping soon. And we'll also be doing our mental health checkups on there for tier 3 people. And then So you'll also notice that there's a full archive. So this is the other thing I was going to mention. This is it. There we go. Okay, I got there. I had to just keep talking. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is you may have noticed that like super annoying day not long ago when all of these episodes from the old episodes got like reposted but locked on our Buzzsprout, which is like our main platform for our podcast, because we were going to do the subscription model temporarily. I've just taken those off completely. So the old episodes, there are 30 of them that have been removed from the podcast world, Apple and so forth. Mm-hmm. They're now on Patreon. So you can now get like the entire podcast on Patreon, including the archive. You do have to pay $5 a month to get access to the archive ones, just the last 30. But the rest after that are free. So you can go on there and still listen to the regular podcast. Anybody can. But if you want to listen to the old ones, that's how you have to go about finding them. You can also buy them at the collection for $20. So that's how you're going to find them. I think slowly I'll sort of like move things into the archive as we go, probably like by tens or something, so that we keep adding to it. But yeah, it is a massive undertaking. We have like so many episodes, 79 or something, 73. So at some point we just have to kind of try to keep it like wieldy. It's unwieldy. We need to be wieldy about it.
Yes, we're working on our wieldiness.
Our wieldiness is just a really key thing. We just got to do it. Got to up our wieldy game. Mm-hmm. Speaking of game, we also have a brand new type of segments. Brand new list, I should say, because I'm talking on the singular list of segments that are just for gaming shows. So you will hear as we go through these new sort of categories that we used. We do have 2 that are carryovers, the first and the last, actually, ironically. But in the middle, there's all these new ones. So we're excited. The old segments don't necessarily apply. So we're trying out something new. We're excited.
We are so excited. Traitors. Oh, it's everything right now.
I'm so excited. Okay. All right. Let's just fucking jump into it. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Shall we go?
Let's do it. Who's going to start? Me? You?
You go. I like it.
All right. Yeah. So, Traitors Season 3. Let's go. So, we start with the castmates coming in via Jeeps. I wonder if Jeep was sponsoring the season of the Traitors. Who knows?
I hope they are Jeeps, too. I don't even know. Which may show that they aren't being sponsored, because I feel like they would have like put a big, like Jeep.
This is true. Yeah, maybe it's some other form of vehicle. But
that was my assumption.
Yes. But so we start. Tony says he was boring. I was in the jungle eating bugs, and that's it. LOL. Not true. He is. We were talking about this a little off mic. I am such a Tony stan. I find his gameplay so chaotic. I also think he's adaptable and has grown over time. But there's something about him that I think he just has one of those brains that's always going at 1,000,000 miles a minute. And I love watching him play. And you can see in this game, he was really trying to keep a low profile. And unfortunately, it didn't work. He tends to be one of those players who either makes it to the end or gets kicked out early. And I think this time it was kicked out early at the hands of one of Dr. Kay's favorite, who did kind of a gangster mobster-like move.
And felt bad about it, which was sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm a Boston Rob stan. So this is perfect. We're like on different sort of camps here. And it's kind of fun. We can be like...
And you don't like Tony as much, and I don't like Boston Rob as much, which is so funny. It's so interesting. I think he's magnetic. It's just all interesting. It's so interesting.
There are things I like about Tony too. I liked that he used to like hide in the bushes. Like that was such a smart gameplay. And the fact no one else really does it is wild until Rachel this last season. Oh yeah, Rachel. Oh my gosh, that's the other thing about our Patreon. We're now going to be like open about who we are, obviously, because you're going to see videos of us. So, but Dr. Ray / Rachel. There was the name of one of the players in Survivor just now that was like amazing player. She won actually, and she was incredible. And she hid in the bushes at one point and listened in on people. So that was a little bit of a Tony move. Actually, I didn't think about that.
Tony in his spy shack.
Yeah,
cracks me the fuck up. Oh.
Yes. So
it was the funniest thing. And he didn't sleep for like the whole time. He just was up. He just, I don't know. I'm a Tony fan. But he said he was boring, which is so far from the truth. And then Brittany says to Danielle, or Brittany about Danielle, and I'm not a Big Brother person, so I know that's a show I don't know as much about. But
should I explain this really quick? Because I have some feelings about it too.
Yes,
go hard
please
on it do. So Brittany is a player of Big Brother. Danielle was with her on the last All-Star season during COVID. And Danielle and Brittany started out working together. And Danielle is, by the way, like a really famous player from like one of the first seasons. She should have won. And she's a Black woman. So like, honestly, I think that's part of why they also changed the way they gameplay. So like at the time when Danielle lost, it was because everyone she sent home went home and watched the season. So they saw that she had betrayed them. And after that season, they stopped letting people go home. So they would get sequestered. So they couldn't see that content, which is so important. So actually, if they hadn't been able to see her, I don't think she would have lost. So like that was a really big deal. So everyone thinks of her as like the best player that never won. And Brittany's also never won. But in the All-Star season, Brittany ended up betraying Danielle. So when she sees Danielle, her stomach drops. When Danielle sees Brittany, she starts crying. And so they start talking to each other. And then we see Brittany saying like, I know I fucked up. I know I hurt you. And then she goes, you were so hurt. And I didn't expect that. And then that hurt me. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was like, what? Wait a minute. What? I'm going to hit pause on this. Like, it hurt you that she was hurt? Like, you know what I mean? It's almost like she didn't actually regret it at all. She just, like, felt bad that Danielle was hurt. So, like, saying, like, you know you fucked up. I don't even really, you know what I mean? I think it's like, I realized after I really hurt you, I wish I'd thought that through ahead of time. Just, like, a totally different way of putting it. I personally would not have taken that well as Danielle. But so now they're just very cautious of each other in the season.
Yes. I think, and pretty strategic about it in a way that's maybe actually protecting Brittany.
Yeah.
Ironically.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't want to, put the target on her back. It's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. It's fascinating stuff. New feature this year, people can shake Alan's hand. And they let Boston Rob into the game to potentially get rid of another player. Carolyn almost did it. She almost swapped Boston Rob for Tony.
Which is funny. Those are our two guys. Yeah.
Yes, they are our guys. Oh, I'm such a Tony lover. But
I was sitting there like, go Carolyn. And you must have been like, don't do it.
I know. Exactly. I was like, no, don't take Tony out. But I think it shows the way, and we're going to talk more about her, I think, today, but it shows how she's always thinking strategically. And I think people constantly underestimate her.
Did you see her season?
I didn't. So we started that season of Survivor and then literally went on holiday break. And so I saw the first episode of her and she was like maybe going to get voted off, but then didn't. That was the episode I saw. And I wonder how far she goes. I'm so curious.
Are you going to watch the season or can I spoil it?
I think we might.
Okay,
I think we might. I've got a feeling she went far, but
yeah, totally. Because she's here for one. That's one thing you can kind of guess. But yeah, the main thing is that she is same thing as she's saying here, which she even tells us in the show that she's always underestimated and she's super smart. The thing that I can tell you that's not a spoiler is that she is a substance use counselor and she works with people with substances as somebody who also is recovering or in recovery. And so she is very mental health focused. She's also neurodivergent, which she talks about being autistic or on the spectrum. So I think that's the part where like everyone calls her like all over the place or whatever and saying she's crazy, which is just so like ableist, as we're talking about off the mic. That's something that Dr. Ray also said, like really there's ableist treatment of her. And I don't know. It's so frustrating. I really hated seeing it. At one point, I thought Gabby was the one saying that she was batshit, and I was so glad it wasn't Gabby because I was like, no, Gabby, do better. But yeah, it's just such a bummer because I love Carolyn. I'm rooting for her, big time rooting for her. She's doing so well.
She is.
Where Carolyn stands together.
She literally heard them talking about her. Like she knows everything that's happening. And you know what? They're going to regret the day they underestimated her. I hope.
Yep, exactly. Actually, you know what? Why don't I do my segment on her right to this very instant?
Sure.
Because I have her as the segment, new segment alert, beep, beep, beep. I don't know why it would be that. We're backing up into a new segment.
Yes,
it's called Your Psyche is Showing. So this is something that reveals something about a player's psyche or just way of being in the world. So it doesn't necessarily have to be their psychological or mental health functioning. So for me, I have Carolyn and neurodivergence. And I think that's really what she's referencing when she says that she's used to not being taken seriously is sort of the way that her autism shows up. I also felt like when she did hear people talking about her, there was sort of like a nod to perseveration. I felt like the way that she was sort of saying like, I don't think I can let this go, which like on the one hand, a lot of us feel that way. Like, you know, we hear someone talking about us that hurts and sticks with us. But in that setting, I think a lot of people would be able to be like, yeah, you're right. Like, I just shouldn't think about it. But she really couldn't, you know, and she even like referenced like, I really cannot let this go. Sort of, it felt like more of a characterological thing she was saying that just like she knows this about herself. Like she won't be able to. So that's common also with OCD and ADD and ADHD and other things as well. So it's not necessarily the autism, but it could be. But either way, I felt like that was a little bit of us understanding her psychology as well. And I felt like she was just doing such a beautiful job in the turret, for example, where she was talking to other traitors, because she does become a traitor. Just, it's not a huge spoiler because people have seen it, but she does a really great job of holding her shit together and not letting it get to, I think she actually comes across as quite social in what we've been seeing. And I think that actually is unique from the Survivor season. So I get the sense she's grown as well since the Survivor season and continued working on herself. So I love her. I love her so much.
I love her too. I have a segment about her as well.
You just unmuted. You scared the shit out of me too. I was like, what just happened?
So sorry. So that was my bad. I unmuted, but I have a segment about her as well. I'm trying to remember our new segments, which one it was, but it's about I think the psychological construct that's benefiting her gameplay.
I love it.
Is her self-awareness. Yes, like she knows, she is so aware of the perception of her, and interestingly also aware of how she can use it to her benefit. Like people find my behavior hard to pin down. And actually, I think that's a strength. And I still need to think about how I'm coming across so that I don't take it too far. I think because she's had to be so reflective of how she comes off in social situations, it's a huge benefit to her here. And that she doesn't have obvious tells because of the way she's perceived, which is ableist. So she's kind of using other people's ableism to her benefit, which I think Go Carolyn. I am so here for it.
Yeah, totally. She's like, the fact that they don't know what my normal is means that they don't know if I'm being normal, which is so true. Yeah.
Obsessed. So Boston Rob, she decides not to go for it. And I have another segment here about just the cast of the Traitors in general, which is so queer. We've got so many queer folks in this season, which is incredible. Chriselle is Gabby, who are very femme bi women, which I love to see. We've got Bob the drag queen. We've got that diplomat who is bi.
Yep.
We've got Bob Harper.
Bob H. Yep.
Yeah. And I was thinking about why queer people likely do well on this show. And Alan, of course, is queer. And I was thinking about how from a young age, oftentimes minority stress theory tells us that queer people sometimes feel that they have to hide parts of themselves and that sort of stress takes a toll on them psychologically. But if we're to view this from like a post-traumatic growth lens and how this is helpful here, they maybe might have an easier time in certain settings reading the room and knowing what parts of themselves they have to keep to themselves than people who don't have that experience. And I was talking to my partner about this, and he was talking about, he's really into British spies and like MI5 stuff, about how after World War II, there were so many gay spies. And there's something there with like having to know how to code differently because of your experiences. And so I think that's why queer people continue to be on this show in large numbers. Interestingly, a lot of bi plus people too, which there's something there about like bi plus people. Yeah, you have to code switch between like hetero cultures and more like LGBTQ plus parts of yourself. So I don't know. There's a lot of interesting stuff here that I'm just loving. So
that is incredible. I've never thought about that. That makes total sense. Like sort of used to living on the fringes where it's sort of like neither gay nor straight for bicultural folks or bisexual folks, and sort of like therefore it's easier to cope with actually not being on the radar. And in fact, it is better to not be on the radar in those cases because no one is really going to be accepting is the thought. And so therefore in this show, it's also really good to stay under the radar and not feel like you need to be seen in order to feel real, or like to feel like you belong in order to feel real. Yeah, that's so true.
Yes.
I love that.
Oh, yes. But it was I'm so into it and just love this show. So then they get into the house, they talk to each other. There's interviews with Alan in this amazing scene. I thought some of the Tom Sandoval stuff seems a little clickbaity, but I thought it really worked here. Yeah. Where Alan was like, how would you feel if I tapped you on the shoulder? Would you feel I betrayed you, Tom? Doesn't feel so nice, does it?
I'm sorry, I didn't tap, maybe. Wait, was it?
Oh, no, did or didn't? I can't remember.
He's like, betrayed. No, because he wanted to be faithful. Yeah.
Yes. So so that was incredible.
Yeah, that was so funny.
Loved it.
Would you feel I betrayed you, Tom? Yes. Doesn't feel nice, does it?
Yes.
I was like, okay, I will take it. It was a little clickbaity, and I still loved it. I was like, I will take that, Alan. Thank you. Yes.
So here for it. And it's also good because I think Alan almost in the past has had a distance from reality TV. Like Andy from Bravo does all the fun,
Yeah.
So it's him kind of acknowledging. It's a little bit like, yeah, I'm kind of into this too. Where before it's like, I'm a actor kind of guy. Yes. So I liked that in that way as well.
Such a good point. He was like in on it with us. And to anybody who doesn't know, Tom Sandoval is the one who cheated on Ariana Madix very famously from Vanderpump Rules. It was like on CNN, so I'm imagining you've heard of it. But yeah, so you're right. He sort of was like a cultural nod where we usually think of him as just like being isolated in his castle waiting for the next play he's going to do on stage or something.
Yes. Yes. Loved it. Our roundtable choices are Danielle Reyes, Carolyn, So Here For, and Bob the Drag Queen. Such good choices. Yes. Perfect choices.
I have to say, I was worried about Danielle Reyes because they did Dan last season from Big Brother, and they're just not good traders. But Big Brother players are not good traders. I don't know what's going on, but they're just not doing it. So I was immediately worried, but
yeah. They think they're good traders too, and then they're just not. There's something missing there. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. It's so weird.
Yes.
But I'm still excited though.
Yeah, so we'll see. So we're so excited. And then there's a new twist. So when they get to the final, they won't tell us if they're traitors or faithfuls, which means, they can, when they're kicked out, so they can only rely on their instincts, which is stressful for sure.
Mm-hmm. I love it because I was thinking about the fact that also they might not know if there's 3 or 4 traitors total or whatever before they start losing people. So it definitely like gets them to a point where like I was thinking about why did they do this? Like what was the impetus for this rule? Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that it might be that like, for example, last year, the 2 faithfuls might have felt betrayed by the fact that they figured once they got Ari out that would have had to be the last traitor. Like they might have been thinking numbers wise. That means that's it. So like, that's not fair to them. They might have been like, that's not fair. Oh, that's 2 years ago, I guess. The first season. They might have felt like that's not fair because we figured numbers wise that meant that there was no one left. And so they might be like, okay, we need to stop that from even being a thing you can guess based on numbers. And I
like that.
Right? Yeah. Could be that. And I like not knowing anyway. I think that's kind of fun. Them not knowing, because we'll know.
Yeah. It is interesting where I think the traitors are at a definite advantage for most of the game, but in that final round table, it almost shifts and they're not. So maybe that's a way to equalize that. I'm not sure.
That's great too. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Oh, but so fun. And then there's some post-roundtable scheming. Tom and Tony are suspicious of Chrishell. Zac Efron's brother, who they're taking a nod from like The Bachelor and being like, what do they call him? A grounded guy or something in his bio.
See his bottom third. Oh my God, funny. Yeah, I didn't even look at his bottom third. That's so funny.
It's hilarious. It's like grounded or something like that.
Oh my God, too much.
And then Zac Efron's brother, Dylan takes this to Chrishell to kind of make friends. Yeah, and then Chrishell suggests it's revenge because she's friends with Ariana.
Yeah, which you could see, it's potentially true. And then also Tom is just like going off on like things, his theories. Like he's like, oh, Carolyn and Danielle. Like at first I thought Carolyn was, but she's just like that. Like now that I see she's fidgety, it's just that she's fidgety. And like Danielle's definitely not a traitor. So he thinks they're both definitely not traitors. And it was kind of funny because that first day, the traitors that got tapped during the roundtable haven't met each other yet. So they don't know that each other is a traitor. And so Danielle and Carolyn kind of just like buddy up, not knowing that both of them are traitors. And then later in the challenge, Danielle and Bob the drag queen do the same thing. It's quite funny. So the challenge is like a little bit of a social experiment because they're in a big boat. They're all rowing together with 2 coxswains at the front. And then they go up to these rafts. And at each raft, 2 people have to get off the boat onto the raft in order to keep the money that they get at that raft. But the problem is if they get off onto a raft, they also are eligible to be evicted or murdered that night. Mm-hmm. So it actually is like quite a death sentence to get off. But at first, the housewives are the ones who are doing that because they don't really realize what that means. And so they think that they're taking care of the bigger group by doing it. So I think the thing is, like what I wrote here was like, it feels like so many housewives are getting onto these rafts just because they don't know what that means. And so Dolores, for example, like hopped off very quickly without anything. The reason it looks bad is because if you're a traitor, then you don't care if you're up for murder or if you don't have a shield because you can't be murdered anyway because you are a murderer if you're a traitor. So then it would look like traitors would be quick to hop off the boat because they don't care. So then the interesting thing is that I noticed that the two traitors that do actually get onto a raft both got onto the raft at the same time. It was Danielle and Bob the drag queen, and both on the third raft. So I was thinking about that, like, why is that timing the same? It's sort of interesting. They both also used really good reasons for doing it. Like they both sort of like fake cried to get onto the raft, which is also interesting. But they all, and no one suspected them at all too. And then so they ultimately sacrificed themselves. It's like they in a belabored way, got off onto the raft. And the other thing I was thinking about the timing is like at this point, people are going to notice the first two rafts, like who's going, hopping off. But at some point, people will stop sort of worrying about who's the traitor because it's like, well, someone has to do it. And so I was thinking it was interesting that the third raft seemed to be that moment for both of them. So
I have this is my socio-political moment. I found this highly socio-political.
Oh, the gender stuff. I have that too.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, I think we did the same one.
Yeah, gender and ageism, I think. Like the intersection of gender and ageism here were pretty gross. The men's total refusal to get off the raft to me was disgusting. And who were the two men who ended up getting off the raft?
Gay. Both gay. The Goyles and the girls got off onto the rafts.
Yeah, it was unreal. And Bob, I loved when he was like, me giving that speech about sexism was true. And I was also trying to, play this moment up because it was just vile the way the men just refused to get off the raft. And
one
then
of them even said like, okay, so 10 women. Like they just like said out loud, okay, so I guess we're just dropping off 10 women. Just like assumed none of them would be men. It's so fucking rude.
It was unreal. And I'm glad that some people, like I think Chriselle called it out as sexist. Maybe Gabby too. I'm not sure.
Gabby definitely did.
The intersection of like ageism and gender politics there was really shitty to watch.
The housewives are also older women and very like caretaking. And even after they found out what it meant, Robin still said, I would do it again because that's just who I am. I'm going to take care of the group. But the thing was
Dorinda. I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then she got so mad. And the reason Dorinda got so mad is because not only were the people on the rafts not eligible to be safe, they were also abandoned there while the rest of the group went home. They were still stuck on the rafts. They were not able to eat at the same time, so they got the leftovers when they got back. And the other thing was that when they did that, they assumed that 10 people would be out on the rafts, but actually when the boat got to the last raft, no one was willing to get off. So they actually only ended up with 8 people that were eligible to be murdered, which is not fair. That's not what they all agreed to. So I totally understood why Dorinda was pissed. And I actually felt like she was kind of contained for how pissed she could have been, but yeah. Yeah,
she made it nice.
Yeah, exactly. She's just trying to keep it together a little bit. I just really the fact that like I can't remember who it was who said that. I almost think it was the royal. I almost think it was the royal who said so 10 women or whatever about dropping off. That was so fucked up. Like
not okay.
I was so pissed. Yeah,
not okay.
And you're right about the ageism as well. Yeah, just so wild. Nope, no good. That's my bigger sociopolitical. I have an honorable mention later too, but that's fabulous. Yeah. So we knocked that one right off. That's one of the carryover segments that we kept around.
Woo woo.
Okay. So Gabby ends up saying the men were really in it for themselves. So true. Dorinda makes a great point that they sacrificed themselves thinking there'd be 10, but the chances are higher therefore to get murdered because that isn't what happened. She was kind of like pissed off crying in the testimonial face to camera moment. They ended up getting abandoned. So then in the post-challenge scheming, this is like the after stuff back at the house, people think that there are traitors among the rafts, but a lot of people don't think it's Bob the traitor. Bob the traitor. You see that? I wrote that too. Bob the traitor.
He would love that. I think he would love that nickname.
He sure would. And he's doing, well enough to be able to own that name. So that's great. Definitely doing a traitorous role here. So they hadn't waited to eat either, which was really not fair. So people were pissed and they didn't really want to hear it. Sandoval goes and like hugs Danielle. I actually kind of thought that was nice, but that is sort of his thing. Like he like finds someone who's like on the outs and like goes and like offers pity because he like figures that makes him look good. So it wasn't genuine to me, but I also felt like it was kind of nice the way he went over. Dorinda was actually acting fine. Like she was clearly like pissed off and crying in the testimonial, but then she was like acting like she was okay. And then she sort of like started lashing out a little bit. Oh, what a joy. And folks, what a joy to be thinking about this with you all. And we're also going to hear your thoughts about it because you're going to come to our Patreon tomorrow when we create it. And when it's launched, we've created it. It's going to be at patreon.com/realitytest. capital REALITY, capital TEST. I don't know how much those capital letters mean, but they are actually capitalized in the URL when I see it on a browser. So we're doing it. Maybe I'll practice the other way too at some point. But yeah, /reality test. You'll notice that we're announcing that as well if you forget the URL on our social medias. So if you come to our social medias, we are on TikTok at dr.realitv, REALITV. We're also on Instagram, where we have very similar handles at Dr. Ray Pods and at Dr. K Pods. And we're collaborating on posts, so you'll be able to get to the other if you find one of us. And you'll also find us on Facebook at Reality Test Pod. I have it linked with the Instagram, so anytime I post on Instagram, it goes directly on Facebook. So you'll see similar things if you're on Facebook but not Instagram. And then you will also see our YouTube is at the @ Reality Test Pod, all one word. You will also see that we're going to have posts that advertise things that will be on the Patreon. So you can see little like previews if you're not convinced. If you want to join us on Patreon, at least keep an eye on our social medias and kind of get a sense if you can see some content you'd like to learn more about. So, hey.
And download us. They can download us and join our Patreon, as Dr. K so wonderfully said. Please do these things to help us keep doing this thing that we love, if you are so inclined.
Stay afloat. Help us stay afloat.
Yes.
And what a joy. Deep appreciation to you all and to my dear co-host, Dr. Ray. And we will see you next session, friends.